Hello and welcome to the Gratitude and Growth Podcast. I'm your host, Sarah Mittich. I am an actor, a yoga instructor, a former ballet dancer, but above all, I am a wildly curious person. So I've spent the past several years researching and studying human behavior, why we do what we do, who and what we innately are, what my purpose is on this planet. And I'm here to share the insights and the tools that curiosity has led me to uncover, in hopes of helping you to navigate the inevitable ups and downs of your own life, and in hopes of inspiring you to become the person that you have always wanted to be. So pull up a chair or go for a walk, hop on that treadmill or go for a drive, and join me as I explore what it is to be a human being in this lifetime. Hello, and welcome back to another episode. I have a guest today that I'm so excited to sit down with, because not only are we going to talk about breathwork, which is a tool that absolutely changed my life. This woman is such an inspiration to me. She inspires me to take actions on the things that I want to do because she does so. She inspires me to be vulnerable publicly because she does so. She inspires me to continue to do the work on myself because she continues to do so. She is a Trauma Informed Breathwork Facilitator. She is a Reiki Practitioner. She is an energetic intuitive. And above all, she is a fantastic human being. Please let me introduce Michelle Argyris. Hi, Michelle.
Hi, Sarah.
Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me. You just brought me to tears already. And I'm just really honored to be here today.
We have had some very profound conversations, you and I, over the years, especially these last few years. And I'm just so grateful to have this opportunity for the rest of the world to hear us riff and talk a little bit. I definitely want to get into breath work. And if that segues into other natural conversations, wonderful. But let's just get started. How would you explain breath work to someone who has never heard of it?
Oof. Okay. So interestingly enough, the first time I tried breath work, I didn't like it. I was like, this is so hard and so much work. And I don't think I quite understood it. It took this one moment, this one time where I sat down and I was going through a really rough time in my life where I actually surrendered and allowed myself to take these little sips into parts of myself I had never accessed before. And it blew my freaking mind. Am I allowed to swear on here? I feel like little F-bombs are going to fly out. Okay. You can
Totally,
bleep them if you need to. So my journey started 2 years ago. And for, I guess, a description on what breathwork is, essentially just in a scientific level, it's different breath patterns, different breathing techniques, essentially, that we can use to just open our airways and get more oxygen in the body and, just be able to allow our cells to open up. But in an emotional and a spiritual level, it's a whole nother thing. So there's so much really to talk about. It's hard to start.
Do you want to dive into a little bit of your journey with breath work and kind of how it helped you or what it brought out in you? And then we can kind of get more into the scientific, spiritual, however we want.
Yeah, that sounds good. Yeah. So, gosh, like I said, 2 years ago, I was going through a really rough time in my life. And as a high-strung perfectionist, trying to be nice to myself with these words, I went through the ringer and I was very depressed and overly anxious. And I was desperate to find different tools to just survive, honestly, a survival of day to day, moment to moment, second by second. And I found a bunch of different modalities that really, really worked for me, but breathwork was by far the most explosive, the most expansive, and the most helpful tool I have had to date. Of course, other than my psychedelic journey, which we can talk about another time. There was a moment where I did a breathwork session when I was in that space where I got to see myself, hold myself, feel myself in ways I had never experienced before in my entire life. It blew my mind. It
Okay.
blew my mind. Yeah.
When you say you got to experience yourself in a whole new way, what does that mean to you? I know it's so hard to put words on these kinds of experiences. The reason I'm asking is because breath work has taken me to places far, far away from here, inwardly and outwardly. And so I'm always just so curious of other people, what that experience was for you, if you can find words that can explain it.
If I could explain how that made me feel, it was like I was seeing myself for the first time and seeing different parts of myself for the first time. We have this library or kindergarten of little children that exist inside of our bodies, and they are dying to be seen and heard and loved and validated. And they exist in different parts of our body. They could be hanging out in our heart. They could be hanging out in our belly. They could be hanging out in our pinky finger, and we don't even know why, you know? And so just trusting and surrendering into that experience and allowing those parts to come out, and not only seeing the part, but listening to it. It takes us out of the conscious brain when we're breathing in these breath types and into the subconscious. And that is where all of the wisdom and information we need is stored. So the more we trust and lean into that, the more we can actually gather to help heal and support ourselves in all areas of our body, spirit, mind.
Okay, and so let's dive into that. So when we're doing breath work, I mean, I imagine there's dozens of different what would they be called? Like forms of breathwork, exercises, tempos? What would you call them?
I guess we would just call them different breathing techniques. So, for example, I'll give you guys two different types right now. So, one would be the halo breath. That's a simple in through the nose and exhaling out the mouth. When you just continue that pattern in through the nose, out the mouth, in the nose, out the mouth. And we continue that. You can go for 1 minute. And if that's enough, you stop there. You could go for a full hour. But the longer you go, the more you can access that subconscious part of you. And that's where you get to meet all these, these little children, as I call them, asking for everything they need. The conscious brain can't come up with that. We try to make sense of everything. We feel something, we feel sad, and we're like, oof, I feel my heart. My heart is sad. It feels broken. And so our conscious brain is like, well, why? What happened? But sometimes, one, it's not even ours. It may be coming from somewhere else, another lifetime, a mother. It could be coming from somewhere else. So we identify with those feelings so quickly, but sometimes they're just simply emotions passing through the body. And so when we take time to actually stop and listen and hear, there's more than your conscious brain could ever even come up with. And that is the power of breath work.
Yes. So I remember reading this fact over and over again that our subconscious is 95% and our conscious brain is only 5%. And when I read that the first time, to be honest, I think it took me months to actually comprehend what that means, because I'm like, of course I'm using my brain every single day. What do you mean I'm not using my brain? But it's exactly that. Our subconscious brain, our subconscious mind. And this is, for me, exactly that, what breath work helps me do. And I want to talk to you too about time of breath work, because I always get, my ego likes to trip me up a little bit, especially if I'm doing a breath work session on my own, of being like, oh, Sarah, well, you have to do it for 45 minutes, or no, 5 minutes is enough, and all these different things. And I've learned, for me, When I'm feeling very anxious, breath work is something I immediately go to now because it helps me get out of that terrible vicious loop that my brain and my thoughts are going in, whether it's, I mean, it can be anxiety over anything, and it drops me out of that and it drops me right into my body.
Mm.
And so I find when I'm anxious, and I can do multiple ones, sometimes box breathing for me, if I'm anxious, helps to just slow it all down. But other times I actually need a more aggressive breath work to almost like match my pace of anxiety, to like almost push me through, and then I slow down to another one. And it's that one, it's almost like doing the more, I mean, I call it aggressive. I don't know what professionals call it, but for me, it's like, like the 2 deep inhales with the passive exhale. That, because it's hard. It's physically hard to maintain. And so it's almost like, it's like going to the gym for me. Like when you're really pushing if you're like angry and you're like, I just need to lift weights, I just need to go for a run. For me, doing that more intense breath work matches my level of anxiety or anger or hurt or whatever it is. And then it lets me access a different part of it and then kind of dip down into finding where either the pain or the trauma, whatever it is, which one of those inner children, I love that analogy, which one of those little inner children needs attention.
Yeah.
So do you find a certain timing, like doing it for 10 minutes, doing it for half an hour? Like, is there a number, like a magic number that is best?
So the cool thing, this is all intuitive. Breathwork is so intuitive. And the beautiful, most empowering thing about breathwork is you get to breathe in a way that feels right for you every time. And each time you do that, that's going to look different. So if you're, like you said, Sarah, if you're in one of those moments where like, I just want to go full in the intensity, if you want to do an intense breath work, you can just speed it up and or deepen the breath even more. And that will create a more intensified experience. If the breather is feeling gentle and needs more nurturing and they're looking for something really soft and compassionate, maybe it's a more of a deepness versus a speed. So there's lots of different ways to support ourselves in the types that we want to do. Now, in terms of timing, between the 8-minute and the 12-minute mark, when you're doing the repetitive breath type, especially the activated pattern, that's called the triactive. It is 2 sips in with the mouth and then out the mouth. So, and it continues, we continue that breath. For the first 8 to 12 minutes, you're in your conscious brain, which is why it's so hard. So that's where your judgments are going to come in and your resistance and why am I doing this? This is hard work. Like, I don't feel like this right now. This is weird noises I'm making out of my mouth. Are people looking at me? All those questions we ask ourselves or we get self-conscious about, or self-judgment, and all that will come out. If we push past that 8 to 12 minute mark, you tap into your subconscious and there ain't no self-judgment in there. That is such a beautiful place. Your subconscious has so much wisdom far beyond the conscious brain could ever have. And so, invitation, if anyone out there tries breath work, give yourself the opportunity to get past the 8 to 12 minute mark. Because when you do, that is where the magic is. That is when you'll start to actually feel sensations in your body you might have never felt before. I also invite always, I'm a huge advocate for using vocals in the breath work. So on the exhales, letting out a big sigh. So it could sound like, even just doing that once feels so good. So if anyone's listening, just give it a shot. Let's try that together. A nice deep inhale through the mouth and a nice exhale. Literally just so beautiful every time, right? Or sometimes it's a grunt. Sometimes it's a straight up yell. There's rage inside. One of your little parts is angry. And the worst thing you could do is not allow that part to express itself, because then it stays in your body. And then guess what? We get sick. We get sick if there's too much energy stored in your body because it has to be released. Here's a little, someone told me this once and it landed for me. And so I share this with everyone. It's a little vulgar, but I'm going to go for it. If you don't take a shit, the food inside your body becomes toxic. You have to release the food that you eat. It is the same with emotions. We have so many emotions that are swirling around our bodies, and they're not all bad. They're good ones too. Excitement is an emotion, but can you imagine carrying excitement 24/7? You would be so tired. That would be exhausting. So we have to release it. So what do? Some people love movement therapy, dance, sports. We love breath work. There's so many different tools that we can use. But the important part is allowing the release, because otherwise our bodies will get sick. There's just too much that we're holding on to, and then we implode, and then we have anxiety and we have depression, and we don't know how to function in the world. And it's not our fault. It's just we're not taught these things. We're only now learning about all of these like amazing new tips and tricks. I mean, I'm sure they've been around for forever, but there's just newer ones now that have resonated for me. I can speak on behalf of myself, that are really, really helpful. And so I feel inspired to continue to share that with the world.
Yeah, and I'm so grateful that you do. I've taken a few of your breathwork workshops, classes, either in person in LA or just over Zoom. And I'm so grateful that you offer them over Zoom, because it's still so nice if I can't get into a studio. I know you, and so the familiarity of it is such a blanket to me. But I find the way you guide in your sessions is really beautiful. I've done a lot of breath work on my own, and I do enjoy that. But there is something when you go in an environment as well, and you're making those noises together, and you're having this transformative experience with all these strangers who start off as strangers beside you, that by the end of the class, you become so close to. And you also set that up very beautifully. I mean, in person, when I was taking your classes was it Breathwork?
Mm-hmm.
The studio?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And then now at the Studio City location. That's where it is, right? Yes.
Yep.
I love how you get us all to introduce ourselves to the person beside us and just talk about it. Immediately gets us uncomfortable first to bring us comfort afterward. Mm-hmm. And I find too, the noises, like for me, anger is a very interesting emotion for me. I didn't feel a lot of anger throughout my life. And then I went through my own transformative journey, and I realized that I had so much anger to some people, but also most of it at myself. And I think that's anger towards ourselves. I didn't realize how much I had in it, of like, I think it's the understanding of, usually if you're angry with somebody else, it's because it's a reflection of something you either did or didn't do, or something like that, right? And I find breath work really beautiful to help access the anger and the frustration and the vocal bits of that. Like, there are some times where I'm doing breath work and I am full out screaming, or like at some points on the exhale, I'll just start like punching the air. Like I get my whole body into it if I need to. And it's a beautiful release, because I believe your emotion, especially the anger, the resentment, the bitterness, the frustration, it does build in you, and it does become disease in you. I've watched it with people in my life. I've watched their bitterness and their unforgiveness eat away at their minds. I've watched people's illnesses manifest in different types of cancers, in this and that. And I think our body is such an incredible, I can't even say tool or thing, or I don't know what it is, but its ability to heal itself and its ability to hurt itself is one and the same. And I think breathwork for me has just been this beautiful tool to honor each of those emotions. And also, I will feel it physically in my body, like I'll feel it in my hip, or I'll feel it in my shoulder blades as I'm doing the breathwork, to be like, what is this? Mm-hmm. And then that's where that energy is being actually stored physically.
Yeah. Thanks for that, Sarah. They say you got to feel it to heal it. So if we're not allowing ourselves to go there, we're holding on to it. We're just denying it. We're just denying those parts, and we still live with it. It still exists in the body. But if you don't feel it, you won't heal it. And so I'm a huge advocate for getting people to feel safe in their body. I think that's the number one. And I think that's what you were kind of touching upon a little bit earlier too with the groups. Even a virtual, it's incredible how much you can feel over the computer, even though I'm not there, with everyone in person. It's safety. There's a safety that needs to be created either with the facilitator or within the group setting before we get going, because if the person does not feel safe in so many ways, emotionally, spiritually, physically, you're not going to relax and surrender so that you can then meet those parts and be able to heal them. So safety is the number one most important quality to any breathwork practice. And quite frankly, it should be for any type of session for all people, whether it's yoga or a dance course or whatever. It's building community, building a safety, an energetic, warm blanket before we get going so that they know that when that part comes up, it's okay and it's safe to go there. So thanks for naming that. And yeah, I feel like, that's probably the most important component for sure.
And when it comes to the actual breath work exercises, I've always wanted to know, but why do your hands start cramping or clawing sometimes? Like, what is happening? I'm pretty sure it has something to do with like carbon dioxide. I don't even know. Talk to me.
Yeah. So that's something called tetany. I call it monster claw hand. And I usually, again, part of safety is I name this at the top of each session because there's like an 80% chance that you're going to get tetany when you breathe in this way because your body's not used to it. You are, interchanging carbon dioxide and oxygen in a way that is more intensified than we normally do. So there creates these physical sensations in the body, and the hand clamps is like the number one. So most people panic, right? I mean, even when I go to now, I'm a facilitator, and if I were to go do a breathwork class, I still appreciate when the teacher says, guys, tetany probably is going to come up. So if it does, you're good. Just that reminder that I'm safe, because it's jarring. When your hands can't open and they feel stuck, you're like, oh, what is this, right? But just knowing, oh, this was called out already, and here it is happening. I was told I was safe. Am I? And that's something you kind of have an internal dialogue with yourself, right? I'm sure in the moment you're like, the teacher said I was fine. This doesn't feel fine. My hands are doing weird things. Like, what is this, right? But the beauty is when you surrender, when you accept all the resistance, the pain, and anything that's coming up, the frustration, the hands will start to soften. And how cool is it to go from full resistance to softening versus just an easy ride, right? So when we see those pain triggers show up, whether it's your hands or your mouth is kind of feeling like kind of a little bit more numb, or, there's a whole bunch of physical sensations. If it was easy, it wouldn't be this powerful. But when those things show up and you're like, oof, I'm feeling something, this is hard and I don't want to go there, but you're showing yourself enough love today to go, you know what, today I will, or today I can, but only in little sips. And you get to choose how far you want to go each and every time. And that in itself is safety. And only that is something you can create. I can't create that for the breather. The breather has full agency over how they want to show up for themselves. I'm just simply a container holding a space and creating some really beautiful music that I absolutely love. Which I would love to talk about more too. Like, curation of music is also a key component to breathwork as well. So yeah, there's a lot of elements to this.
With breathwork, I love doing is it called the tri-breath? What did we call it?
It's the triactive breath.
Triactive breath.
Yeah.
And then I love breath holds. I absolutely love breath holds because they take me to a place. And I remember when I first started doing breath work now, like 3 years ago, the first time here, I'm not in Toronto, I'm in Florida, but back in Toronto, I would feel like, oh my gosh, there's no way I could hold my breath for this long. And then I got to a point where I actually ended up timing myself, and I would end up holding my breath for 3 minutes on the exhale. And it is breath holds that take me to a different place, especially after the triactive breath. Why is that?
It's a really good question, Sarah. So, firstly, it's incredible how long we can actually hold our breath. You don't think you can, but you absolutely can. It's the mind thinking that you can't. It's always the mind that gets in the way. Now, when we're breathing in that specific way, again, the CO2 and oxygen is really opening up a lot of space. So that's, if we're looking at it from like a scientific space, but also just energetically, when you're moving energy through every part of your body, and then you literally sip it all in and hold it. You're holding yourself physically, again, emotionally and spiritually in a space where you can journey. It's almost like a psychedelic experience for me when I get into that top hold. I'm like, ooh. So you are releasing natural DMT. Like we all have DMT, so that's part of it too. So we get into this therapeutic space. And when you're in the therapeutic, quote unquote, space, it's like not sleeping, not awake. You're kind of in this like middle ground place. And that's where like such beautiful healing can happen. That's where there's so much spaciousness. That's where the judgments get just chucked out the window. That's where we actually get to see ourselves for who and what we are truly versus what we think we are or should be. It is the most amazing space to be in. And I also do, sound healing as well, and the crystal bowls. And there's, music, like I said, is such a big part too to this. I love doing breath work and then finishing with sound healing because you're blasted open with the breath work. And then the sound healing allows you, like every sound is vibrating, resonating into every cell in your body while you're open. So it really gets you into that therapeutic space fast and holds you there. It's so yummy. It's so, so yummy. So, but the music, if I can just touch on that for a moment. Yeah.
Totally.
Oof. So the music is, I'm a firm believer that as a space holder or container holder, which is what I call myself, I don't like the word healer particularly. And I don't like, I like to just call it a guide or a space holder because that's truly all I'm doing. I'm just bringing in everything I can energetically. And in order for me to do that, I have to be turned on by everything that I'm doing. And by turned on, I mean, I have to love the music now. So every playlist I've ever made, actually, let me reframe that. Every class I've ever taught, I've never played the same playlist. And I've taught hundreds and hundreds of classes, which is a lot of time for me to put them together, but it matters. It matters because if I'm not energetically turned on by the music that is playing, the energy that you feel from me as your space holder will shift. And for me to be open and completely attuned to my breathers and be able to really, truly hold them in a space, I need to be open and alive and well too in the space. So there are things that we do as facilitators to make sure that we access those parts to be completely open in these containers. And music for me is one of the top things. So, and I love music and I love sharing music, and you can feel it when you're in my breath work. You'll be like, oof, Michelle loves the songs. Now I do too. It's just like this energy, like exchange between breather facilitator, and it's so, so yummy. So yeah, the music for sure would be a huge component as well.
Yeah. Honestly, I love your breathwork sessions ending with sound healing. It is truly an experience. It takes you on a journey. And I hear that. I've never looked at it from that perspective before. I've only understood it from the receiving end as the breather, but it's true because it's also the way you time it. For me, at least, is when my brain does get to a point where I'm like, I'm tired. I don't want to do this anymore. This sucks. It's the music that keeps you motivated. It's powerful. It's strong. It's inspiring, encouraging, empowering, all that good stuff. And it does. I think these experiences are so important and they're so unique. Or maybe it's because I, like you, I love music and I love dance. I love movement. And for me, music is always the key to moving things through my body. But I think the music is so important because it guides your journey in a way. And it's another level of support. So
Mm.
I totally hear that from you.
I love that you just said that it's additional support. I didn't think of it that way, but that makes sense to my brain. Like it is this sound vibration that is carrying you through your pain. When you feel like you can't do it anymore and you're tired and you're like, oh, I can't. But when that song comes on or it changes or like a different pattern comes in and it feels like supportive, like you said, to just get through, get by, open, nurture, all the things. That's really beautiful. So thank you for, naming that one.
You're welcome. And I just wanted to touch back on something that you said. I've actually never spoken about this publicly. So here we go. This has been a lot this season. Going back to breathwork, DMT, accessing that part of you. I was doing breathwork, I think, every morning for about 3 months. And I mean, I would do 15, 20 minutes of very activated breathwork and then go into a meditation. And it was actually that allowed me, because you said it's similar to having a psychedelic experience in the sense of it opens you up. And it was that completely sober, quote unquote, not on any kind of psychedelics, that I traveled for the first time. And where I went, you can call it fifth dimension maybe. I don't really know. I don't need to label these things, but it was actually breath work. And I think because I was doing it so frequently, your DMT levels naturally build in your body because we naturally have DMT. I watched this entire awesome documentary on this that like blew my mind. It's on YouTube. It's free. And it took me to a place and I went into my meditation, but I was there, but not there. I'd set a timer. I went way longer than my timer. I think I came back to about 2 hours later. And it was the most peaceful, most incredible, most enlightening experience I have ever had. But when I woke back up on my floor, because I usually do breath work on my floor, the closest thing I could say is I just became love. I just became love. And it was like this full embodiment. And it was so humbling. And it was so peaceful. And it was so suddenly the clarity I felt of who we all are as energetic beings was so fine-tuned. And ever since then, I struggle to kill a fly. I can't kill a spider. It literally allowed me to experience oneness with all that is in the most profound way. And this is why I'm such an advocate of breath work. And yes, it helps in times of anxiety. And yes, it helps in times of trial. And it allows you to access those things. But I do believe that I don't want to say the word manipulating, even though that's what comes to mind, but by manipulating your breath or exercising your breath, pushing past your conscious mind, you literally become aware of the truth of the world, which is not this external concrete jungle, money runs everything thing. You know, you become connected. And that one session completely changed my entire life and my outlook on life. And it's also beautiful because what's cool about breath work is it hits your mind, body, soul. You know, yoga does too, but I don't have as much yet of a transcending experience with yoga as I do with breath work because I'm still moving through the asanas. I'm still meditative, but my conscious mind is still active to a certain extent. But breath work, you have to go through all three. And breath work, as intuitive as it is and as spiritual as it is, I will tell you right now, it is one of the strongest ways to build mental discipline. Just like going to the gym, if not at some points, for me at least, harder. Because for some reason, I'm like, whatever, put the weights on and I'll keep doing the squats. But doing the 15 minutes of triactive breathing is a whole other level. And so it hits all three facets of us. And I think for anybody out there too who struggles with mental discipline and integrity with yourself, of like keeping promises to yourself and things like that, breath work for me was just one of the ways where I was like, no, I'm setting that timer for even if it's 5 minutes, 5 minutes, and I'm going to do it. And I'm going to do it. And then you build from there as well.
I love that, Sarah. It's like a mental massage for your thoughts. That just came through for me as you were talking. It is a mental massage for your thoughts. So similar to why we need to go get massages for our bodies when they're tight and you've got muscle spasms and all this, our minds and our thoughts can start to fill up a lot of space. And it's clearing and decluttering that space so that we can kind of clean up and give ourselves an opportunity to feel peace and be the being that we were meant to be on this, planet Earth, that we got a blip of time to exist within, So it's like, yeah, mental massage. I like that. Mm-hmm.
I like that a lot. I wrote that down. I'm going to text it to you after this. That's a really good line.
Yes, I made it into Sarah's journal.
You've been in my journal. You've been in my journal before.
So good. What else did I want to name with what you were saying? Every time we do breath work, you would know this too. It's a completely unique experience. So really it's showing you where you're at and what you need without having to intellectualize it. So in that moment where you had your full release, your full surrender, that DMT release, let's call it, where you felt oneness with the world, like that was you. That was your healing you did in that moment. You were open to it and you were willing to receive. A lot of us sometimes have struggles to receive. And I know you and I have had these conversations around receiving before too. And it's just so beautiful. The more you allow yourself to receive, the more you get to like truly deepen your love with the universe. And that's probably what you felt in that moment. And just to play how different it can be. So thank you for sharing your and I've had some of those too, where I felt like one, and I can get into those another time, but I'm going to just play the opposite, a really painful breathwork experience, which was, I tried it at first, like I said, and I didn't love it too much. And then when I was in a moment in my life where I felt done, I was like, I'm so done. And no one would know, it was very private. And on the outside, everything looked really great. I was filming a movie at the time. And, I had a business that was doing really well. And all these things looked really great on the outside, but my insides were collapsing. And as somebody who identifies as the helper, I didn't even know where to ask for help until I had no other choice. There just was no other choice. It got to that point. And so I had found someone to do, some healing with. And one of the tools was breath work. I was like, oh God, here we go. This one, right? But I was at a point in my life where it was so dark and so painful that the thing I was worried about, which is losing control or letting go of the stories that I was holding on to, I didn't care. I was ready to die, die in the sense of letting go of letting those stories die, letting go of, it's like, I didn't care what happened to me. All these ideas in my head, oh, what if breathwork does this to me or that to me? Or I had all these random thoughts in my head because I'm scared and my own fears were getting in my way. But because I was in such a dark spot, I was like, fuck it. Bring it on. I don't even care what this is. If this kills me, fine. I really didn't care. And in that surrender, in the surrender of death, of letting go of resistance that was holding me back in so many ways in my life, is where I had my big breathwork moment where I went, oh my God. And I had tetany. Oh girl, I had tetany. I had claw hands happening. It was a lot of tetany. My mouth looked like a butthole. It was totally cramping up like this. And I'm trying to breathe. And it was not easy. But I was like, today's the day I'm pushing. And I had it in me. I chose to that day. I'm like, I am not sitting here any longer. And I am willing to try anything. And if I'm going to do it, I'm going all in. And I was like, And if all the things that I'm scared of start happening to me, well, then they do. And I let it go. And then that's when love showed up. It's like, in order for us to get to these love spaces, we have to push through pain. We have to not just push through pain, but accept it and love that pain, because that pain is there and shows us so much. There's so much lessons in pain. Like, we have to rewire that thought around pain. People are like, I'm scared of pain, I don't want it. And they run. It's like, well, that pain can show us how to evolve, how to grow, how to expand. Like, that pain or that fear is actually a beautiful, beautiful teacher. And that was the day my mind was blown, literally, physically, spiritually, emotionally, through breath work. And I knew that in my own healing journey, it was going to be a big part of my life, whether it was me just breathing or, facilitating and going through this massive program. I went through a very long, intensive program, and it was completely life-changing.
I'm so grateful for it, for all of that, for you. I loved what you said about fear and pain, because I feel like when it comes to fear and pain, we either want to run, like you said, we want to run, or the perfectionist in us is like, I'll fix it. I'll fix the fear, I'll fix the pain, and then I won't have it anymore. And for me, the biggest growth lately has been in the purest form of self-love and self-acceptance, of knowing I will always have fear and pain, knowing that it will always be there. And it's by accepting it that I can transcend it. It's by accepting it that I can then step into love. Or there's still some days where I'm like, cool, today's going to be the day of fear and pain, and that's okay, because I also know it is temporary. When you're trying to run from it or you're trying to fix it, you almost give it more power. And then the length of time that I'm in pain or in fear is so much greater than when I can name it and be like, I'm scared shitless because of X, Y, and Z. And I don't want to do X, Y, and Z because all my triggers are being hit. My anxiety's through the roof, and I just want to sit down and cry for 3 hours. When I can actually allow myself that space, then it's funny. Usually it's like, oh, I just needed to cry for 5 minutes and now I'm good.
So good. So good. Yeah. Another one is, what you resist persists. So if you're going to keep pushing against something, that loop is going to keep happening, and you're going to keep coming back to the very same thing over and over and over again until you're willing to break yourself free. And that's hard. It's not easy. Imagine we could just break out of loops. We'd be doing it all the time. Half the time, we don't even know we're in a loop. Like, being conscious of the loop is the first step. And most of us are very unconscious in so many different ways. Like, it takes work to become conscious and start to pay attention to the subtleties and the energies and people and what's actually happening on a conscious and subconscious level. So yeah. And another big learning, again, this came through my medicine journey, but also breath work, is the thing we fear is never as scary as fear itself.
Ooh, yes.
The thing we fear is never as scary as fear itself. We spend so much time and waste so much energy in fear when, first of all, it happens, 2% of the time, the thing we're fearing, like maybe less, right? So it's like, damn it, I spent all that time fearing, and the thing I feared didn't even happen. Damn it, right? But even if the thing did happen, I think this helped me when I had gone through years ago CBT and cognitive behavioral therapy for my own stuff. And when you think about the thing you're fearing, like, think about the worst case scenario. And if it actually played out, is it that bad though? Like, is it really that bad? I had this fear of throwing up, a little phobia that I have, a conversation for another time, but I would be so scared to throw up in public. To make it more specific, I don't know why. And guess what? I've never done that to this date, and I'm 35. It still hasn't happened, but I spent a lot of time obsessing over it. And I had to sit down and go, okay, if I was on the subway and let's say I felt sick and I threw up, what would happen? Like, let's say worst case scenario, it actually played out. Well, might have a little smell to it, and there might be some puke on the transit floor. Not that there's ever not been that before. And maybe someone might be like, ew, but then probably people will be like, are you okay? Can I help you? Like, this is where love can open up. Like, through my weakness, it gives other people the opportunity to love. So I might, in my worst case scenario fear, be opening up a space for other people to give and for me to receive love, And when you think of it that way, it's like, damn, it's not that bad. Even if that did play out, it wouldn't be comfortable. I'm not saying that would be fun. That would be horrendous. But is it as bad as all this pain and time and energy I've spent thinking about it? No. And so the fear goes from like a 10 out of 10. And when I would do that cognitive behavioral therapy, within seconds, it would come down to like a 6 or a 5.
I love that. Thank you so much for sharing all that. I didn't know that about you. So it's always so nice.
I forgot. And I just remembered during our conversation. So I was like, oh, this might be a point to bring this up. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Couple more questions on breathwork that I just have that I've always wanted to know. And for those listening who have maybe never heard of breathwork or never tried it or have heard of it, but are hesitant or have tried it and similar to you, hate it. Thank you so much, by the way, for sharing that whole story. Because I think if you try breathwork the first time and you're like, this sucks, which might be your experience, it's so good to have somebody speak about how like, yeah, I hated it. And then I went into it and I just fully surrendered and just went, because that's also the magic of it. Who should not do breathwork?
Yes. Okay. I'll get into that in 1 second. I did want to name it's breath work for a reason. So when you're jumping in, I think if people are looking for this like sound bath experience, wrong class. So I think expectation plays into it as well. I've had people be like, I'm doing yoga, right? I'm like, no, sorry, wrong class. They're like, well, what is this? It's breath work. And they're like, huh? And at the end, they're like, whoa, had no idea that this was going to happen or what this was, but that was awesome. Or people walk out in the first 5 minutes of class. They're like, what the heck is this? I did not know this is what I was signing up for, because they don't give it the chance and the opportunity. Right. So yeah, breath work. You're there to do some work, some beautiful healing work. Yeah.
I love that. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. And then very, very important, and something I always name off the top of each class too, there's a list of different contradictions for breath work, but generally speaking, I always name, if you are pregnant, you could do breath work, but in a very, very gentle, there are different breath techniques that I would show. So I would not suggest the holotropic style breath work for that. And, or if you have any conditions with your heart or a history of seizures, those are the 3 main things I like to name, that it was probably not the best idea to do breath work. And I just let them know you can enjoy the music and do a nice, beautiful, gentle in through the nose and out the mouth, and they can do a very, very just soft version. That should be fine.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
How often should you do breath work?
I call it intuitive breath work for a reason. And that's because we get to choose how we want to breathe, when we want to breathe, how often we want to breathe. I know you were talking about the idea of time too. Really, it's like, what can I fit into my schedule? I think the most important thing is consistency. And I think that's the thing most people lack is like, I don't want to say spiritual consistency because not everyone's spiritual, but just like a consistency to your mental practice, whatever that looks like. So people do like one breathwork session and they're like, oh my God, I felt amazing for 2 weeks after all these things were so aligned. And then, 2 months later, they're like, oh, I'm feeling like shit. And I'm like, well, when's the last time you did breathwork? They're like, well, the last time with you. I'm like, girl, this is why there's a consistency to our practices. And I wanted to name as well, letting go of the idea of space and time will be hard for the first 8 to 12 minutes when we're in conscious brain, but even intuitively allowing yourself to take as much time as you need is also super supportive, because if you thought you needed 5 and all of a sudden you're into it and your body is screaming and begging for more, you listen to that. Or if you planned a 60-minute long session and your body's like, I'm too tired today, this is not the day for me, you have to listen to that too. It's so intuitive. It's so empowering too, because you get to choose.
Now, okay, question on that. How do you hear the difference between that intuitive voice and your ego being like, this sucks?
Were you on? I think you were on that session, Intuition and Instinct, right? Yeah.
I was.
So that's a hard one. And if I had the answer to that, I'd be a professional at knowing when it's intuition and when it's, ego. I think that for me, and that'll be different for everyone. Again, that's intuitive in itself. It's like for me, if I feel my heart space, I feel like I'm in flow. If the sensations and the information that's coming through feels unattached to anything and it feels like it's coming through like to a source, like up to source, or your energy field, your life force, whatever you guys want to call it, some higher power, I always feel like it's intuition, this knowing. It's not attached to any thought. It's ego when it's attached to different stories, or if we're questioning ourselves, that's already an ego, right? Intuition doesn't question, it just simply knows. And so it's hard sometimes to differentiate those two, but there are physical sensations that you can tap into, close your eyes and just be like, okay, when I simply just know, where do I feel that in my body? And for me, that's above my head. For someone else, it might be in their heart. For someone else, it might be on their back, right? And when I am in my ego or my, my conscious self, where is that landing for me, my ego? Like, how does that feel in my body? And then starting to see, where does that land for you? Maybe your ego's on your right shoulder. Why? I don't know. That's for you to decide, right? You ask the questions like, why are you here? Because if you were to ask me for the answer, I'm giving you my answer, and that pulls you further and further away from your own wisdom. And you have so much, right? And that's another thing too. It's like being able to listen to our own bodies brings so much agency, because I could ask everyone else what's best for me, but at the end of the day, I know what's best for myself. You feel it, you know it, right? You take little tidbits of information and you can try it and be like, ooh, that one really landed and really worked. Thank you, Sarah, and take it and run because that one landed. But someone might have a really great idea and you try and you're like, this is not for me. I don't know why it sounded great, but it's just actually not doing the thing I thought it was going to do. And therefore I'm going to X this one out and stick to something else that feels better for me.
That's why for me, honestly, and to tie it up here, is breath work, following that meditation. Usually it just kind of goes into it. For me, it helps me access that knowing, is even if it's just a 10-minute session that isn't the more aggressive triactive breathe, even if it's just slow, gentle, that's still 10, 15 minutes of just the slow breathing. Like, it doesn't always have to be that, how did you call it? Something?
The holotropic style, but even the holotropic style can be slow. Just like that. It can be gentle too. So it's not the breath type. It's just the way in which you want to breathe. Slow, deep, fast, intense. Like, what do you need? That's the beauty of this.
Yeah. And it's breath work. It's exactly that, followed by that time in silence. For me, everybody who's listening, if Michelle named it so well, you have all the answers to the questions that you're asking. You really do. And I think we live in a world, I know I did for so many years. Honestly, for most of my adult life, I never actually made my own decisions. I never actually had my own opinions and values and thoughts, because I would just, like, by osmosis, jump on bandwagons or like listen to the news or listen to the people around me. But I never actually sat down to ask myself, especially the big life questions. And it's in that space, after whatever breathwork session you are called to, that I guarantee you your answers will come to you. And it's up to you whether you follow them, accept them, or whether your conscious mind ends up denying them. So it is a really beautiful, powerful thing.
Thank you, Sarah. So well put. And when you speak, I can feel where you're going. When you were explaining, it's just like I can feel what you were talking about. words are, I don't even know what the percentage is. We could Google this, I'm sure, are like probably 1%. Energy and feeling is so much more. And so many people are stuck in words, and words.
They are the least effective communicator. That's what I say.
Yes. Yes. Thank you. You just like put it together for me in one sentence. I probably would have did a roundabout explanation, but exactly that. Exactly that. Yeah.
Okay. Michelle, I'm going to wrap it up with 2 more questions for you.
Okay.
And these are 2 questions I'm asking everybody on the podcast.
Okay.
Given the title of the show is called Gratitude and Growth, would you be willing to share something you're grateful for today and something you are growing through right now?
Definitely. Okay. Something I'm very grateful for is, and it's hard sometimes to say what you're grateful for in yourself. It's easier to say, I'm grateful for something else. So let's just go with me because that's the hardest one. I'm grateful that despite all the mistakes that I make, I look at them, I acknowledge them, and instead of making it everybody else's issue and problem, I really try, and I'm not saying I do this perfect, and I'm still learning every day, but I really try to mirror it back to myself so that I can heal those beautiful wounds that are showing up. So I want to celebrate that, that willingness to look, despite how painful that might be, to see it and try my best to work through it.
Thank you. That's really beautiful.
I would say something I'm growing through is learning compassion, starting with self and also with others. I'm an intense force that can't be reckoned with for any of you that know me. And sometimes I feel I could slow it down a bit so that I can really feel into the collective versus my, go, 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 get it mentality, so that others can also feel involved with the forward movement or the idea or the progress kind of thing. So yeah, just trying to give myself compassion as well, because I tend to be, we've talked about this, Sarah, that little inner perfectionist, one of the children in the preschool. She comes out to play often. And I realize it's not about everyone else. It's really just what compassion can I have for myself? Because if I did, I would have more for others. And that is something I want to continue to grow within. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Michelle. Thank you for coming on here with me today.
Thank you, Sarah. You were the best.
You too. I'm so happy we did this, and I'm sure it's going to happen again.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Michelle. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in today. I appreciate you all. And as always, stay grateful and keep growing. Thank you so much for tuning in today. If you liked what you heard, hit that subscribe button and maybe send it to someone who you think might need to hear today's message. And let me know how everything's sitting. Leave me a rating and a review and let me know what's resonating with you. What do you want to hear more of? What's your favorite episode and why? And I hope you find your way back here to another episode, another time, as we keep exploring this beautiful and wild thing that we all call life.